Thank you for joining us. I'm Assemblyman Pete Lopez. I represent a 7-county region, Mid-Hudson, Northern Catskill, Southern Tier, Southern Capital District. And my area, very much like Ms. Russell, is rural, underserved, and struggling to take advantage of the technologies as they emerge. And the first piece I'd like to hit, and I'll try to be quick for my other colleagues' sake, is the issue of the wireless access and the cell tower availability. And I guess my question would be, in regard to your study, have we looked at the relative placement of cell towers, not just for standard communication, but also for emergency purposes? And I reference it by way of Irene and Lee, which devastated our region. And we found that where traditional landlines had failed, where cell tower technology was made available, i.e. Introduction of a they call it a cow, I guess that's a technology, the term, in key areas, that the area came alive with robust cell tower communication or wireless communication for emergency purposes. So question is, in your study, have we looked at cell tower placement and investment to ensure access for everyday purposes, but also for emergency response purposes?
So the telco study is absolutely addressing wireless and its place in the everyday lives of consumers and businesses, and that includes emergency response. So next generation 911, the service quality, the adoption of wireless, how that's impacting the lives of our consumers is absolutely being studied in the telco study.
So in that study, are we also making recommendations as to how those key infrastructure pieces are put in place? Cell tower costs, I don't know, maybe you can tell me $1 million or more for a cell tower. And my region, for example, is bereft of cell tower coverage. If you go into Delaware, Greene, Ulster, Schoharie counties, you'll find great areas of dead zones, if you would. And so so for counties to do this, and counties have been trying to, I'm actually trying to put together a proposal to do a cell tower initiative in the Northern Catskills. But the issue will be, how do we fund it? And who's responsible for placement of infrastructure? So I'm just curious about your take on.
I'm not
so
sure
in terms of cell
question.
tower placement and affordability, does the PSC have any recommendations or proposals for driving investment for cell tower placement?
Currently, our regulation of wireless is suspended, but that said, we are assessing and evaluating the wireless service and how it impacts the services available to our consumers. So I do think it is a very important issue that we should take a further look at. We can work with you on that.
Right. Just switching gears quickly to the broadband piece, and again, much of the discussion, at least from my area, and I'm sure from many of my colleagues in rural areas, is an issue really of market failure. So when we talk about competitiveness between technologies and various companies, whether they're legacy telephone companies or larger providers, what I'm curious about is, does PSC, is it looking at the issue of the final cost as it relates to the end user? And are we doing an analysis of our policies to make sure that what we're doing is sufficient to entice investment, particularly with the private sector? And the reason I say that, with the stimulus funds, there was an effort to do a major broadband initiative across the nation, as you know. We had a number of providers who applied, and then in some cases, some who turned the money away because there were too many strings attached, or they couldn't meet the upfront costs for investment on their own. And so I'm just curious, is PSC looking at the mix of policies to make sure that in cases of market failure, where we can't deliver broadband at X number of $1,000s per mile, are our policies going to be sufficient to reach that end goal that we talked about of having every user in the state secure it, particularly in these outlying rural areas? Are you looking at the economic dynamic?
Absolutely. The department is balancing the interests of what the consumers are looking for, consumer protections, competition, while ensuring the continued innovation within the industry. And those all will be taken into consideration as we evaluate our policies going forward, making sure consumers are getting the services that they want and need at an affordable price, while incenting the marketplace to continue to innovate and compete.
So just to cap that off, so as we look at this initiative that we're rolling out with the governor's office, are we convinced, I say public service convinced, that the method, the procedure, the flow of funds will be sufficient to achieve this end goal by the date stated.
I believe that the Broadband Program Office's grant guidelines and the applications that they're moving forward with will be a success.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Thank you, and thank you for being here. As